It was a quiet, sleepy town where nothing much ever happened. Everyone knew each other, and life was peaceful. But one day, a carnival arrived. The big, bright tents went up overnight, and colorful posters covered the walls, promising fun and excitement. It seemed like a dream come true. Little did the people of this town know, it was the beginning of their worst nightmare. Children laughed and begged their parents to take them to the carnival. The Ferris wheel could be seen from far away, spinning slowly, its lights blinking in the dark. But there was something unsettling about the carnival. It felt wrong. The clowns, especially, were strange. Their smiles seemed too wide, their eyes too cold. One clown, in particular, stood out. He was tall, thin, and his makeup was different from the others. His name was Giggles, but his smile was far from friendly. People started to notice things. Small things, at first. A missing pet here, a broken window there. No one thought much of it until the first person went missing. It was a young boy named Timmy. He had been excited to go to the carnival, but after that night, no one saw him again. His parents searched everywhere, but there was no sign of him. The police got involved, but they found nothing. It was as if Timmy had vanished into thin air. The carnival stayed silent. The rides kept turning. The music kept playing, and Giggles the clown kept smiling. But his smile, now, seemed to hide something dark, something evil. The town tried to move on, but whispers started to spread. Was the carnival hiding something? Was there a darker side to the bright lights and happy music? No one knew for sure, but everyone was starting to feel uneasy. As days went by, more children disappeared. Every night, someone new would vanish, and each time, the last place they had been seen was the carnival. Parents started to panic. The police increased their patrols, but they were helpless. The carnival seemed to have a hold over the town, a grip no one could break. But still, the people came. They couldn't resist the bright lights and the strange, hypnotic music. Giggles was always there, watching. His eyes followed every movement, but he never spoke. His face was painted in a grotesque smile that never seemed to change. It was almost as if the makeup was part of him, something he could never remove. The children who saw him felt a strange fear they couldn't explain. There was something about his presence that chilled them to the bone. One night, a group of teenagers decided to investigate. They were tired of living in fear, tired of the police doing nothing. They snuck into the carnival after hours, hoping to find some answers. What they found was worse than anything they could have imagined. The tents, empty during the day, seemed alive in the dark. Shadows moved where there should be none, and strange sounds filled the air. It felt like the carnival was breathing, like it was waiting for something. And then they saw him. Giggles. He was standing at the far end of the tent, his eyes locked on them. His smile was even wider than before, stretching unnaturally across his face. The teenagers tried to run, but it was too late. Giggles moved faster than they thought possible. One by one they fell. Their screams were swallowed by the darkness, and by morning, they were gone. The town would never see them again. After the teenagers disappeared, the town changed. People stopped going out at night. Windows were locked, doors bolted. But it didn't matter. The carnival was still there, and so was Giggles. He could feel their fear. It fed him, made him stronger. He loved watching them squirm, loved knowing that no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't stop him. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said the carnival was cursed, that it brought death wherever it went. Others whispered that Giggles wasn't a man at all, but something far worse, something ancient and evil. But no one had the courage to confront him. The police were too scared to even approach the carnival anymore. They had given up, leaving the town to fend for itself. But there was one man, an old, retired detective named Jack, who refused to give up. He had lived in the town his whole life and knew it better than anyone. He had seen things, dark things, but nothing like this. He knew that if anyone was going to stop Giggles, it had to be him. So, one night, Armed with nothing but a flashlight and an old revolver, he went to the carnival alone. The air was thick with tension. The lights were dim, and the music played softly in the background, like a lullaby. Jack could feel the evil all around him, pressing down on him, trying to break him. But he pushed forward. He would not be another victim. He would not let Giggles win. The clown was waiting for him. Standing in the center of the tent, his arms spread wide, his smile as twisted as ever. "Welcome, Jack," Giggles whispered. His voice was like nails on a chalkboard, sharp and grating. Jack raised his gun, but before he could pull the trigger, Giggles moved. Faster than anything Jack had ever seen. The last thing Jack saw was a clown's smiling face, inches from his own, before everything went black. Jack's disappearance hit the town hard. He had been their last hope, and now he was gone, swallowed by the same darkness that had claimed so many others. People stopped leaving their homes altogether. The once lively streets were now empty, and the carnival loomed over the town like a shadow, its twisted music echoing in the wind. The bright lights, once inviting, now seemed like mocking beacons, daring anyone to come closer. Inside their homes, people whispered. They spoke of the curse of Giggles and of how he seemed to control everything. Some claimed that he was no ordinary clown, that he was something much worse. Others believed the carnival had opened a door to another world, a world where Giggles came from, a world filled with death. But no matter what they believed, one thing was clear: no one was safe. The town had become a prison, and the clown held the key. Days turned into weeks, and still, the disappearances continued. It wasn't just children anymore. Adults began vanishing too. Each night, someone new was taken, and each time, the only clue left behind was a faint echo of laughter, so cold and haunting it chilled the soul. The town was dying, and no one knew how to stop it. A small group of survivors, those who had managed to avoid the clown's wrath, gathered in secret. They knew they had to do something, anything, to end the nightmare. Among them was Samantha, a young woman whose younger brother had been one of the first to disappear. She was determined to stop Giggles, no matter the cost. She had seen too much, lost too much, and now she wanted revenge. But how do you fight something like Giggles? How do you kill what isn't human? The group didn't know, but they had no other choice. They had to try. Together, they made a plan. They would confront the clown at the heart of the carnival. It was dangerous, and they knew most of them wouldn't make it out alive, but it was their only chance. As the sun set that evening, they prepared for what would be the longest night of their lives. The carnival was waiting for them. The lights flickered as they approached, casting eerie shadows across the tents. The air was thick with the smell of rot and decay, and the sound of distant screams seemed to hang in the air. But worst of all was the laughter. That terrible, twisted laughter that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. Samantha clenched her fists, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the fear crawling up her spine, but she pushed it down. She couldn't afford to be afraid. Not now. Not when they were so close. As they entered the main tent, the air grew colder. And there in the center was Giggles, waiting for them, his eyes glowing in the dark. Giggles watched them, his smile growing wider as they approached. He didn't speak, but his presence alone was enough to fill them with dread. The survivors stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Samantha took a step forward, her voice trembling as she shouted, "What do you want? Why are you doing this?" The clown's laughter echoed through the tent, sharp and cruel. "What do I want?" he sneered, his voice sending chills down their spines. "I want to play a game where the only prize is survival." His eyes gleamed with madness as he moved closer. "You see, I feed on fear. And this town, this pitiful little town, has given me more fear than I could ever have hoped for." Samantha's heart raced. She could feel the panic rising in the group around her, but she refused to back down. "We're not afraid of you," she lied, her voice shaky. "We're going to stop you. Giggles grinned, his eyes narrowing. Stop me? Oh, my dear, you've already lost. With a snap of his fingers, the ground beneath them shifted. The tent seemed to close in around them, the walls warping and twisting as if they were alive. The air grew heavy with the scent of blood, and shadows danced along the edges of the room, shapes that seemed to move and flicker with unnatural speed. The group scattered, each person running in a different direction, but there was no escape. The tent had become a maze, a labyrinth of nightmares that shifted and changed with every step. Giggles was everywhere, his laughter echoing through the darkness, his twisted face appearing in the shadows, always just out of reach. One by one, the survivors fell. Giggles toyed with them, dragging out their fear, savoring every scream, every cry for help. And all the while, Samantha could only watch helpless as her friends were taken, consumed by the darkness. But she couldn't give up. She wouldn't. There had to be a way out. There had to be something they could do. And then she remembered something Jack had said, something about the carnival's history. There was a rumor, a legend, about how the carnival had come to be. If the legend was true, then there might be a way to stop Giggles. But it was a long shot, a desperate, last-ditch effort. As the last of her group was taken, Samantha made her move. She had one chance to end this. One chance to stop the clown once and for all. Samantha's breath came in ragged gasps as she pressed herself against the wall of the twisted tent. She could hear Giggles' laughter echoing through the maze, closer now. But she had a plan. It wasn't much, and it was built on nothing more than a rumor, but it was the only hope she had left. She had to find the heart of the carnival, the place where it had all begun. The legend Jack had mentioned said that the carnival wasn't just a collection of tents and rides. It was alive, fueled by the fear it harvested, and at its core, somewhere deep within, was the key to destroying it. She moved through the maze cautiously, every step calculated. The walls shifted around her, twisting and warping, trying to lead her astray. But Samantha stayed focused. She could feel it now, a pulsing energy drawing her closer. She wasn't sure if it was real or just her imagination, but it didn't matter. It was the only lead she had. Suddenly, the tent opened into a large, empty clearing. In the center stood an old, dilapidated carousel. The paint was chipped, the horses cracked and weathered. But there was something sinister about it, something that made Samantha's skin crawl. She could feel the weight of the place, the oppressive energy pressing down on her. This was it. This was the heart of the carnival. Giggles appeared behind her, his laughter low and menacing. "You think you can stop me, little girl?" he mocked, his voice dripping with malice. "You can't stop what's already begun. The carnival is eternal. It feeds on fear, and as long as people are afraid, I will always be here." Samantha clenched her fists, her mind racing. There had to be something she could do. The legend spoke of a ritual, a way to break the curse. But it required something she didn't have, an object of great personal significance, something that held immense emotional power. She had nothing like that. Or did she? Her hand went to her neck, where her brother's locket hung. She had worn it ever since he disappeared, a constant reminder of the family she had lost. The locket had been his, a gift from their mother, and it was the most precious thing she owned. Could it be enough? Giggles moved closer, his eyes glowing with hunger. "It's over," he whispered, his voice like nails on a chalkboard. "You belong to me now." But Samantha wasn't listening. She ripped the locket from her neck, her heart pounding in her chest. With trembling hands, she held it up, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't control us anymore," she said, her voice gaining strength with every word. "We're not afraid of you." The locket began to glow, its soft light growing brighter and brighter until it filled the entire clearing. Giggles recoiled, his face twisted in rage. "No!" he screamed, his voice echoing through the tent. "You can't do this." But it was too late. The light from the locket consumed everything, burning through the darkness, tearing apart the twisted reality of the carnival. The tent walls collapsed, the maze disintegrated, and Giggles' laughter turned into screams. The carnival was crumbling, falling apart piece by piece, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Samantha fell to her knees, clutching the locket tightly as the world around her collapsed. She had done it. She had broken the curse. But as the light faded and the carnival disappeared, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong. Giggles was gone, but his laughter still echoed in her mind, a haunting reminder of the terror she had faced. The town was quiet the next morning. The carnival had vanished, leaving nothing but an empty field where the tents had once stood. The people who had disappeared were gone, never to be seen again. But for the first time in weeks, there was peace. The nightmare was over, or so they thought. Samantha returned home, exhausted but relieved. She had fought the clown and won, but as she sat alone in her room, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The locket, once a symbol of hope, now felt cold against her skin. She stared at it, her mind racing with thoughts she couldn't quite understand. Something wasn't right. Then she heard it, a faint sound, barely audible at first, but growing louder with each passing second. It was a sound she would never forget, the sound of laughter, Giggles' laughter. Samantha's blood ran cold as the laughter filled the room, louder and louder until it was deafening. She looked around, her heart pounding in her chest. But there was no one there. She was alone. Or was she? The lights flickered, and for a brief moment she saw him, Giggles, standing in the corner, his smile wider than ever, his eyes glowing with malice. "You can't escape me," he whispered, his voice sending chills down her spine. "I'm always here." And with that, the lights went out. The town would never know what happened to Samantha. They would never hear from her again. But they would remember the carnival, and they would remember the clown. And every now and then on a quiet night, they would hear it, the sound of distant laughter, echoing through the empty streets. Because Giggles was never truly gone. He was always there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the next person to play his deadly game.